Meanwhile, he had been working on one of his most important works, the opera The Rake's Progress, based on the brilliant series of paintings on the downfall of a man of fashion by the 18th century English painter William Hogarth. Stravinsky had apparently seen them in an exhibition in the Chicago Institute of Art. On the advice of Aldous Huxley, he turned to the English poet W. H. Auden for the libretto. Auden, along with a friend, Chester Kalman, produced exactly what Stravinsky valued: tension, fine writing, and a strong dramatic form. Auden was extremely talented, decisive, and a quick and reliable worker, all qualities admired by the composer. It would be impossible to say that The Rake's Progress is quintessential Stravinsky, for it's quite unlike anything else he wrote. However, in its deliberate references to the past, and in particular to the operas of Mozart, and its startling modernity, it is undoubtedly one of the greatest contributions to the operatic repertoire of the 20th century. Stravinsky had often visited Venice over his lifetime. The opera The Rake's Progress had its first performance in Venice in the Teatro La Fenice, here waiting restoration after a fire. Perhaps the city with its wonderful architecture and canals reminded him of St. Petersburg. A further association with Venice developed some years later, when he wrote a work called Canticum Sacrum for the Cathedral of St. Mark, and performed there in 1956. It was the beginning of Stravinsky's last phase of composition, where he explored ever more thoroughly the boundaries of music. He wrote one more work for the stage, a ballet called Agon, for 12 dancers. In it, his passion for rhythmic excitement is thoroughly exploited, as well as his delight in his new explorations of the 12-note row. It was typical of Stravinsky that he should so delight in Venice, itself a stunning reflection of man's past artistic achievements, yet be himself so thoroughly in the vanguard of art for all of his creative life. From this little house in North Wetherby Drive, he sallied forth to all corners of the earth on well-paid conducting engagements. He had found that it didn't really pay to be a modern composer. In his life he'd suffered many reverses of fortune, so he was never slow to take up opportunities of earning money. Conducting his last year or so in Los Angeles, he moved to another house down the road to find more space for his collection of manuscripts and documents. Then, in a final move to make a new start, the cosmopolitan Stravinsky decided to move to an apartment overlooking Central Park in New York. For a man in ill health and in his 80s, this surely shows that he'd lost none of his zest for living. In New York, he died on 6th April 1971. It was fitting that his funeral service was held in the Cathedral of St. Paul and St. John in Venice, a city so closely associated with his work. The sombre magnificence of the building, the ritual of the funeral service, even to the procession which took his body by boat to the island burial ground of Venice, San Michele, would surely have pleased him. He was buried on San Michele just along from the tomb of his old friend and another great Russian émigré, Serge Diaghilev. There can be little doubt that Stravinsky gave more to 20th century music than any other composer of the age. There was no artist of his day more involved in the past. Yet in his music he was also profoundly aware of the essential role art plays in making sense of the present and preparing us for the future.